Oh shit. Here we go again.
Oh my god. Oh no. Burn, baby, burn. Within my entire gaming history, there are scarce few games that I find myself consistently returning back to. Those games that you leave installed on your hard drive because you know at some point you will return and you'll start up again as if you never left, like reuniting with an old friend. This changes, I know. For me, it began with CSGO, then turned to PUBG, then Dead by Daylight, and now what it's been sitting at comfortably for the past 3 years is the game Hunt Showdown. A game that is familiar to those that have played others in its genre, but unique in its own right, holding a sort of juxtaposition in being both simplistic and casual in its objectives and looting mechanics, but deep, competitive, and unforgiving in both its gunplay and gameplay. And having been there as the game has grown considerably, I figured it'd be fun to talk about it and do some sort of pseudo-review of the game. I'll explain what I mean by that later, but for the meantime, let's talk about Hunt. For those that don't know, Hunt Showdown is a first-person extraction shooter set in 1895 in the swamps of rural Louisiana. A zombie plague has rolled through the land and has left it feeling deserted and abandoned as everyone either fled to escape the virus or has succumbed to it. Now all that inhabits these swamps and mills are zombies, hive witches, dogs, and abominations, and you are a hunter, tasked with finding and killing said abominations, also known as bounties. To locate these bounties, you and your teammates will collect clues that you use finding what's known as dark sight, where hunters essentially look into the void and see energies given off by these bounties, collecting 3 of which will detail on your map the location of the bounty. Once you reach the boss layer, you'll then kill the boss and banish their soul, which restores some of your health, but also grants you 5 seconds of wall hacks, allowing you to see other players in the close vicinity. You will then attempt to extract with the bounty, or continue to seek out the other bounty if the map spawns with 2, and during the whole process you'll fight mobs as well as other players who are both trying to kill you and take the bounty for themselves. If you die, you'll lose your character, but if you survive and are able to extract, you'll then be rewarded with that
Sweet, sweet candy. Oh.
candy being money and experience. The whole shebang is of typical extraction shooter fashion, which I understand may still be unfamiliar to some, but there's been a whole range of extraction shooters that have come out in the past 5 years, like Tarkov, The Cycle, The Division had extraction shooter elements, and a whole bunch of others that have tried to come out, like Battlefield 2049's extraction shooter mode. I don't know what the fuck Call of Duty's doing these days, but I'm sure they'll try and release their own version of it. And I know Bungie has announced that they're developing Marathon, which is their take on an extraction shooter. Point being, if you haven't heard what an extraction shooter is, where the fuck have you been? Anyways, real quick for those that may not know, the point of extraction shooter is to get in, get the goods, and get out. Repeat. Along the way, you'll upgrade your character. In Hunt, this comes in the form of buying guns, grenades, molotovs, or traps. Alternatively, you can find guns in the world and loot them off dead players, and when you extract, you get to keep them. Extracting also gives your character upgrade points that you can put into buying perks that give you slight buffs. Standard things like faster stamina regen or faster healing, to more tactical ones like being able to slurp clues and bounties or revive teammates from a distance. You then have the option to either take your character back out into the next game, giving them more XP to use on more perks, or you can retire them for a small lump sum of XP that goes towards unlocking new equipment. The caveat is that if you choose to take a character back out, you risk them dying, which results in you losing that character forever. You'll then pick a new character, kit them out with gear, and then spawn back in on the quest to find the next bounty. Sounds simple, right? Well, it's because it is. I mean, Hunt lacks a lot of the other features that other extraction shooters have. Things like inventory management, armor, resource gathering. Compared to like Tarkov's inventory system, Hunt pales in comparison, seemingly almost non-existent, with one's inventory consisting of only 2 guns, 4 equipment, and 4 consumable slots. And this isn't to suggest that Hunt's inventory lacks variety or depth, rather it's to amplify the core components of what Hunt is trying to achieve: gunplay, gameplay, and immersion. In regards to gunplay, Hunt's weapons are unique in the sense that they're all set in the era within which the game is set. Olden day lever action or bolt action rifles, double barrel shotguns, all with their own pros and cons in terms of ammo count, damage, rate of fire, and bullet velocity. There are pistols, melee weapons, bows, lances, and this variability is increased by Hunt's ammo system, with variations to ammo providing unique situational advantages. Bleed ammo forces players to bandage, giving you opportunities to advance, Poison ammo prevents healing and distorts the screen, giving opportunities to distract and put pressure on the enemy to retreat. Equipment-wise, there's traps, flares, decoy grenades, flash grenades, shrapnel grenades that cause bleed, sticky grenades that do big damage to bosses, all allowing one to fall deeper into a particular playstyle, be that a more stealthy approach, like using a bow, to one that's more aggressive, like using shotguns. And the choice to set this game's world and weapons in the late 1800s not only amplifies this immersion, which I'll touch on more shortly, but makes for a much more engaging and unique gameplay experience. The slow shooting speed and long reload times makes landing shots so much more important, particularly in close quarters fighting, and offers a variety of fighting strategies. Do you spray in hopes that you hit the enemy, killing them before they kill you? Or do you take your time in lining up your shots, giving the enemy more time to do the same? Headshot. Hit. Headshot.
Oh, dude.
And the pace of firefights can shift so dramatically thanks to the environmental design and differences in player loadout. They have a shotgun and you have a rifle, maybe you retreat and fight from a distance. Headshot.
Nice.
Get the jump on a team and land your headshot, the fight can be over within seconds. Or if the player uses the environment to look for flanks or rotates, fights can be drawn out and intense and become this sort of cat and mouse hunt where teams search for each other whilst equally trying not to expose themselves. It's slower than your average shooter and can be over just as fast. And these long drawn out fights have so much gravity and weight behind them that killing the final enemy often feels like breaking the surface for air. And the pacing of this game varies so much. Some games you cruise through, get all the clues, reach the compound and then duke it out with all the squads there. But other games you bump into a group along the way, or you hear audio cues that indicate that there are people behind you and you set up an ambush, or others you sneak up and third party a squad that's been fighting for the past 5 minutes. So many times this game is turned from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds and all hell breaks loose. And it's not hard to be competitive about Hunt, landing a dirty headshot, chasing down and killing people running for the extract, each team member calling out shots and targets, to then just casually going back to chatting and talking about nonsense.
We only use military callouts. Like those YouTubers. Target identified.
Echo Bravo, I got a bogey on my 6.
Echo Bravo, I got a boner. There's
I got a boner on aisle 6.
Get a boner and I've never had sex.
There's so much variety in the pacing of this game that you can really get something out of it whatever way you choose to play it. And the simplified inventory complements this, turning players' attention from what they have on them rather to what's going on around them, as well as providing limitations to how much a character can bring with them, making the use of one's items even more meaningful. Drop in a health kit. Health kit here.
Yeah.
And there are subtle design elements that complement this. I won't talk about it too much, but even something as positioning the crosshair slightly below the center of the screen as opposed to the middle is to complement the verticality of the environment, allowing for us to see more with less of the screen being occluded. Now the other two components, gameplay and immersion, I think are what complement each other the most and are worth talking about in unison. If you've watched any Hunt Showdown review, I'm sure the three things you would have heard people mention are the visuals, the sound, and the environmental design. And all that is fair praise. Visually, Hunt's graphics are some of the best in the biz. Using the Crytek engine, known to have produced graphics card-eating games like Crysis, Hunt Showdown visually looks stunning, not just for the character and enemy design, but for the lighting, the sense of scale, particle and fire effects. And although graphics play some part in making a game immersive, it's the environmental and world design that really sets Hunt apart from everything else. The tone of the world that's been set using these earthy browns and muted greens, contributing to recreating 1800s Louisiana. Each compound within the map feels distinct and unique from one another, but more importantly, the details that the developers have put into every map is meaningful and makes sense in the context of the environment around it. No detail on the map looks out of place. Each water tower, each windmill, each house or building, not only do these hold functional gameplay purposes, providing opportunities for attaining different angles on compounds, but aesthetically fit within the world around it, and more importantly, make sense. Burned out carriages, deserted pig farms, stacks of logs or timber all provide ample cover in firefights, but also paint a picture of an abandoned world once lived in, and holds a sort of quiet beauty that catches you off guard, like in this clip. A full moon hanging low above the horizon, pale blue light spilling across rippling water surfaces crowned by fog, a quiet that keeps you solemn company. Hunt's graphics are gorgeous, there's no doubt about it, but what really sets Hunt apart is its reliance on audio. Hunt has some of the best sound design in any video game, period. Not just in terms of the quality of the sounds, like the sound of the wind and rain whistling through a decayed house, but from a gameplay perspective, the amount of information you can get from audio alone is astonishing. Gunshots in the distance, thanks to Hunt's binaural audio, one can get a sense of direction and general distance, as well as what gun that player may be using. Crow's disturbed, mate, I know where you're heading, how far away you are, and what direction you're going. It is crazy how much information you get from audio alone in this game, and by becoming familiar with these audio cues and the audio of mobs and the environment around you, you'll both be able to plan your approach better, or better yet, recognize when you're in danger. Take this clip for example.
Money and stamp.
Oh, people.
Shit.
Headshot?
Oh.
By recognizing the sound of the grunt being disturbed and the distance at which it came from, I knew that there was no way that I could have disturbed it, and that there must be another player about, allowing me to get the jump on them. Take this other clip, for example. Oh. We hear a hive get disturbed, and as such, we know that there are players about, allowing us to get the jump on them. Understanding how each gun works and the strengths and weaknesses of each gun is one step to getting better at the game, but, in my opinion, understanding how the audio in Hunt works is so integral to the gameplay and is so important in being both a better player as well as adding to this immersion element. And as you get more familiar with recognizing the sounds of the world, you begin to understand how this world works and how you work within it. It also helps that the intro music slaps as hard as it does. Anyway, as great as this game is, it's not without its faults. There are some bugs that pop up occasionally. There's a reload bug that can prevent you from loading bullets into the chamber, and occasionally with updates there can be some game-breaking stuff like being able to see and shoot through walls, but the developers do a decent job at addressing these, and I personally haven't encountered them too much. I think the one thing that I see the most is my teammates' equipment floating around the world, but for me the biggest issue personally is server population, or more specifically how Hunt populates its servers. Hunt has this matchmaking timer, and when you reach the end of it, Hunt will put you in a game with whoever else is waiting within that queue. Sometimes you get a full lobby, but more often than not, at least on the OCU servers, you get put into a game that only has one or two other players in it, and you don't get told how many players were put in that game until after you extract. Now, I don't see any issue with not being told how many players are in the lobby at the beginning. That makes sense, as it keeps you guessing whether people are alive or not. The issue is that you can go a full game without seeing a single player, just to extract and find that you were alone, or that there was another squad somewhere in the lobby or in the world doing God knows what. And it's kind of like, why even put me in a lobby at that point? Like, I would much rather wait an extra minute or two in the starting lobby if it means that my server will be populated. Because even though there's PvE elements to this game, the PvP stuff is what you play for. Now, this is on an OCE server, and on weekends it's fine, but my buddies and I have resorted to playing on US and Asian servers during the week, as there are not enough players to populate the lobbies consistently, and it's just annoying. Another minor gripe is that sometimes it can feel like Hunt is a little starved for new content. It's a bit silly saying this now, as Hunt has just had its next semi-major update where it's introduced its new boss and weather system, which is pretty great. And subsequently, Hunt is sitting at its all-time highest concurrent player count in its entire lifetime, which also renders that previous point irrelevant. And the addition of quest lines and the new perk system with this recent event, or the most recent events, have been awesome. And the weather changing and the dynamic weather has really changed how the game plays. That's been great. You know, very recently, there's been a lot of cool stuff added to Hunt. But before all that, and before the wildfire event, or whatever it was called, the last map and the last boss to be released was Desale and Scrappeak, and they were released back in like March 2021. It's been 2 years for the developers to release one new boss and no new map. And it's not to say they've been doing nothing. You know, there's been a lot of gameplay tweaks, a lot of new guns, a lot of new skins that have been added, and again, the new perk system and the weather changes have been great in adding variety to the maps, and it makes them feel a lot less stale as they once were. It's safe to say that Hunt's the best it's ever been at the moment, and all the events and all the recent stuff has been good, but I know the community has been calling for a new map for a while, and although I like the game and where it's heading, I just hope that's not a long time before we see a new map or a new major content update. Now, I've called this video a pseudo-review, as the intention isn't to prove to you that Hunt is a good game. As the thumbnail states, Hunt is a game worth sticking with, and this is in response to what I think is one of the biggest issues for Hunt, which is its barrier to entry. A recent article by PC Gamer stated that 40% of players in Hunt Showdown have never killed another player, and that's from Hunt Showdown's general manager. And I'm sure now, given that the player count is so much higher than it once was, this number is probably a lot less, but it speaks of an issue that the developers have started to address, which is improving the new player experience in Hunt. When starting out, this game is hard. For the first 40 to 100 hours, it will be brutal. It can feel slow getting clues and getting to where you need to go. The guns are slow, it's scary and quiet, and the thought of dying and losing your character seems like a lot of pressure. It's stressful. And those elements that make this game great, the tension in a long fight, or knowing that you're sneaking up to someone, or that there's someone tracking you down, it's the same tension that I think puts a lot of new players off. And it seems impossible, as the players you're going up against have a better understanding of the gameplay, the map, the guns, the mobs, the audio cues, the mechanics, the strats, the memes. I remember when I first started playing, I think for the first 10 to 20 hours, I just got headshot every time I got into a fight. And it's hard. But the more you stick with it, and the more you understand the game, the better you become. You understand how to lead guns, or how to use the perks, or using one form of one ammo or the other, and when to use them situationally. And then you become better at learning how to stop crouching everywhere, and you learn to stop playing like a rat. You understand when to rush, when to retreat, and you start to get confidence. You start growing in places that you never thought you'd grow, and you start getting these urges that are unfamiliar but exciting and nervous at the same time, to eventually coming to Hunt Showdown adulthood and accepting that medium ammo is the Chad form of ammo. All jokes aside, this barrier to entry is something that the devs have approached with a tutorial system and whatever else, and although it may have helped, there are still some steps left to go. But it's great to see that Hunt's doing so well these days. And if you're having trouble getting into it, or getting past those first 40 hours, if you stick with it, I guarantee there'll be a moment when you think to yourself, man, this game is fucking great. How did it take me so long to get here?
Left side, right side.
Headshot.
Oh. Shots.
Oh,
GG.
shit. Oh, I'm so fucked, dude.
I'm trying to help.
Headshot.
Shots.